Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Simmer, for that introduction. Those of you that don't really know me, my name is Yogesh Kapoor, and I am the founder of the Art of Speaking Academy. I am a public speaking trainer and coach, and I want to thank Nathan to invite me here today to give a lesson on not really on public speaking, but how to craft a winning speech. The reason I chose to do this topic first was because I compete in the World Championship of Public Speaking. I've been competing actually for the last 6 years. And back in 2017, I was very fortunate enough to make it to the top 30 speakers in the contest. And why I start with crafting a winning speech workshop is because as a speaker, we all start with our first speech. And crafting a winning speech is like baking a cake. You need the right ingredients. So, to start off with, many people have this question of how do you find the topic of your speech? And the first question you have to ask yourself when you find the topic is, what life changing experience do you have? So, if I had to ask any one of you, what life changing experience do you have? Let me ask Nathan. If you had to write a speech,
A life-changing experience that I've had?
yeah.
Just anything in general?
Yeah, because we have so many, right?
Yeah, I did skydiving.
Okay, yeah. If that's the message you feel it resonates most with you, yeah, that's perfect. Skydiving. What about you, Simmer? Is Simmer there? Okay, I think maybe she's not in front of her
Hello,
screen.
sorry. I think it was breaking up. Yeah,
Okay. What life-changing experience do you have?
me. Um,
We all have many where, through our lifetime, but just think of any. It doesn't really matter. Like Nathan said, skydiving. Yeah, that's a life-changing experience.
oh yeah, I mean, moving to New Zealand was life-changing experience.
Exactly. So, it could be anything like overcoming a sickness or poverty, career change, finding the right partner, it could be any one of those. Once you have established that or you've written a couple of life-changing experiences, the one I go with mostly is the one that gave me a goosebump experience. So that's the one I usually go with, which I consider life-changing. Um, the second question you have to ask yourself is, what if this was your last day on this earth? What is the message you want to tell? So if you have a couple of life-changing experiences, which story would you pick out of that, right? And what is the message that you have? So Nathan, you mentioned skydiving. Um, what message would you tell the world if today was the last day of your life?
Well, I think if you just if I use skydiving as like a metaphor or something, right? The thing that skydiving gave me when I did it was like a real sense of being alive and like being totally present in that moment, right? So when you're jumping out of the plane, there's no, you're not worried about anything else that's going on. You're just 100% present in that moment. And whether it's skydiving or whatever somebody can do, something where you just feel totally alive and present to the moment is an amazing experience.
I completely agree with you on that. I mean, the skydiving example is so perfect, right? To be right in the moment because, whatever happens, happens, right?
Exactly.
So, like I said, for many people, it's follow your passion, never give up, let it go. The speech I did back in 2017 in Vancouver, Canada, I said my speech title was "Let It Go," was letting go of your past failures and fears and all of that. So it depends person to person, but that helps you even establish better. Oh, okay, so I know out of these life-changing experiences, this is the one I want to talk about. Then it takes you to the third question: is the message universal enough? Right? Now, I'm a vegetarian, but if I'm going to go on a world stage and talk about we should all be vegetarian, I don't think everybody will relate to that message. So you have to make sure that your message is universal enough for everybody to understand. I actually love that skydiving experience. I've never had a skydiving experience. So now you made me think, that's something I want to do when COVID-19 is over. And that would be a message to tell as well.
Awesome.
And which takes me to the final question is how to choose the title of your speech. Now, this one is a little dicey for some people because some people don't like to give away their message right in the beginning. But I have studied like world champions since 1986 till now, and majority of their message is the same as their speech title. So this year, my speech contest was my message was "Get Out," and that was also my speech title. So it makes it easier. I mean, it doesn't really give away the story, but it also kind of, sticks to the audience. And that is something that also can be your tagline in the speech. We all, contest speakers, we always love to have a tagline because majority of the audience, they forget 60 to 70% of what you said, but they remember your tagline and they remember that message that you have to give. So that's how you find the topic of your speech. Next is the key ingredients in the structure of your speech. And we'll start with the opening. So the opening is establishing the connection with the audience. And usually you have about 5 to 30 seconds to do that. You have a 5 to 30-second window to do that. And again, it also depends on what your speech is about and what is the story. So the best way, I believe, is to start with humor. Last year, I did a speech where I said, my name is Yogesh Kapoor and I am very poor. So the moment I said that, the whole crowd burst into laughter. And and after that, after they stopped laughing, I continued telling my story that I'm poor because I don't know how to maintain my relationships. I take things too seriously, and my speech title was "Why So Serious?" But humor is one of the best ways to open your speech. The second is a dialogue. Okay, so 2016 world champion of public speaking, he starts with a dialogue. First, he takes out an underwear, wears it on top of his pants, and then he goes, "Hey, loser, how do you like your new school uniform?" Those were the words of my high school bully, Greg Umberfield. Because dialogue is like a conversation between two people, right? So if you're gonna start your opening, you can also have a dialogue in that. Third is a dramatic story. So when I did my 2017 speech, Let It Go, I started with a dramatic story. I was like, I'm lying on my deathbed, and as I gasped for the last breath of air before my soul left my body, my life flashed in front of me. Three questions came to haunt me: Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? And when the answer to all three questions was no, I had tears roll down my cheeks. Now, when I say that, what comes to your mind? Any one of you? What comes to your mind when I say that?
Whether those questions are true for me.
That, and plus, when I speak about the lying on the deathbed and all, what do you imagine?
It's like a vivid picture of you lying on your deathbed.
Yeah, exactly. Some people think I'm in the hospital. Some people think I'm maybe at home. I'm about to die. I'm really sick, right? So it's that dramatic story. If you have one as an opening, that you need 20 to 30 seconds to establish that connection with the audience. But I saw everybody's eyes were like like, oh my God, looks like this guy survived death. So that's how you pull the audience in within those few seconds. The fourth way is you state your message right in the beginning, you know. So like this year, my speech title was "Get Out." I started like this: I left my house with the most motivating, uplifting and encouraging words from my wife. Get out, you know. And again, um, everybody burst into laughter, and they thought that that was funny, right? But that was also my message. I stated my message right there in the beginning of the speech. Get out. That's the message I had. So that's another way of doing it. And the fifth thing that is very important is props. You know, for example, in 2017, for my Let It Go speech, I used a balloon. Um, 2015 world champion uses a cigarette. One of my favorite world champion uses a flower, you know. And last year I used a costume. So it really depends on what your speech is about. But when you use a prop, it should be only used if it helps your message by 20 to 30%. If it doesn't help your message, then don't use a prop at all. And one thing I love about props is you can use a prop to explain, uh, like when I use the balloon, I said when we're young, we're like this balloon, able to fly high, limitless, fearless. But something happens along the way. We fail at something, and that failure becomes our anchor. And I take the balloon and I just put it in a box because there's a weight at the end of the balloon, and then I just put it down. So that really helps with my message, and it explains emotions in a better way, and it explains how, you know, like how Nathan, you said earlier, it's like a metaphor, right? You can use it like very well. So this is how you do your opening of your speech. Now I'll take it to the body of your speech. So what's the body of your speech? The body of your speech is basically is the roller coaster ride of emotions, right? You want to take your audience on this roller coaster journey throughout, and there are certain pillars to this. And the first pillar is you can have your body of your speech as one story, right? That one experience you had, like in Nathan's case, it was skydiving, or in Simmer's case, it was moving to New Zealand, right? That's that one story. Or you can have three different stories or struggles within that speech of yours. Like in my speech, when Nathan, you said that, you know, you were asking yourself those three different questions, right? So I had three different stories in that speech about my three different questions, and the struggles with I had with those three different questions. So that's one thing you can do in the body of your speech: either have one story or three different stories or struggles. The next is conflict. The conflict can be either personal or with others. Most of my speeches, my conflict is with my wife. You know, is all, and obviously, I'm not trying to say that the conflict is supposed to show her in a bad light. It's just supposed to show what she's trying to explain to me, which I'm not being able to understand, you know. So, or it could be a personal conflict. Like in my 2017 speech, I had a personal conflict with the three questions I had. I wasn't being able to let go of my fear and failures, and in those three different struggles. But every speech needs to have that conflict. And again, Nathan, in your case, if you say the skydiving, it could be you not being able to be in the moment, right? Struggling to be in the moment and thinking about, oh my God, how is this going to work out? You have so much fear. Should I jump? Should I not jump? So it really, that's a personal conflict. So that's the second ingredient in the body of your speech. The third is emotion. So the audience needs to feel what you're feeling. So Nathan, if you had to describe the skydiving experience, how would you describe it? Like if you when you jumped off the plane.
So I think the first experience was like terror,
Mm-hmm.
like really so scared that I couldn't think.
Mm-hmm.
And when the so that's like when we were like
Yeah.
and then when the parachute opened
Mm-hmm.
and it like it opened up, it's like it was literally like everything in the universe went totally silent.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like all of a sudden my eyes got really big, and it was literally like time was standing still, and I felt the deepest sense of peace that I've ever experienced.
Lovely. I love that description because while you were describing it, I was trying to feel it as well. So that's what I mean by that the audience needs to feel what you're feeling. You know, when you said your eyes popped out and you felt a sense of peace, that's what they need to do. Now, let me ask someone else here. Deep, Deep, are you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Deep, do you like eating McDonald's or did you used to like eating McDonald's?
Yeah, I used to.
Okay. What was your favorite meal?
At McDonald's,
Yes.
chicken burger and fries.
Okay. Describe eating it.
Describe eating it.
Yeah.
Wow. The one thing that I really liked about their burger was it had a lot of cheese in it, and then a chicken patty, and then the bun,
Okay.
and it just tasted really amazing, and it tastes same every single time.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. So normally I get Big Mac as the answer. So I ask them to describe. So like and then what I tell the audience is like if I'm describing eating that burger, right? I'll be like, oh, the soft sesame bun and the rare cooked beef and the melted cheese, just like Deep mentioned, right? The melted cheese. And when you take that bite, oh, you know, the cheese melting in your mouth. And you see, now I'm vegetarian, but I'm feeling hungry already. So that's what the audience needs to do. They need to feel what you're feeling.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So that's the fun of it when you do it in a speech, because otherwise it's not going to connect. The story is not going to connect with them. So, and you know, you can even talk about, oh, the French fries, dipping it in that BBQ sauce or whichever sauce you like. And after all of that, taking that one sip of Coke to gulp it all down your throat, you know, that feeling. You get what I mean, guys? You know, that feeling that it's triggering that emotion in the audience of how, you know, like, oh my God, yeah, I'm missing McDonald's right now. You know, I want to go eat it now. So that's the third ingredient. Fourth is the climax. What is the climax? Climax is a tipping point where everything seems like a mess, right? So in every speech, there's a point where you want to show that everything is a mess and you know nothing's working out. Nathan, in your case, it would be like, you know, you would talk about first about the fear of getting on the plane, then you would talk about being on the plane, and then you would talk about when the door slids open and you know just before you make that jump. So everything seems scary and like you said, terror, right? You want to bring that whole experience in front of the audience just before, you know, that's the climax point before you take that jump, which is very important because that's what takes elevates the audience till the top, till you bring them down back, right? So four is climax. Fifth is humor. What does humor do? Humor diffuses emotion and elevates the mood. And what I've noticed and I've studied is you need a minimum of 10 to 15 humorous points in your speech. And I'm talking about a 7.5 minute speech. And I've studied a lot of world champions, so I know that's the minimum requirement of it. Now, I'll give you an example of one of my speeches I did last year, Why So Serious? So in that speech, I talk about how I argue with my wife. I tell her I want a divorce. I leave the house, right? And it's I have a lot of humor going on there, so it doesn't make it seem so serious. And but towards the climax of my speech, I mention a friend calls me and he says to come over. I go to his apartment. His father's, I find his father's dead body, and and then when I tell that story, everyone in the audience suddenly gets serious. You know, you can tell because there's pin drop silence in the audience, and now I have to bring their mood up again. So what do? I have to I have to say something to bring that mood up. Otherwise, what's going to happen? The judges are going to feel that I brought the energy too low. So what I say in the speech afterwards is I went home, I saw that the divorce papers were signed, and I tiptoed into my wife's room because I'm really scared of my wife. And when I say that, the audience burst into laughter once again. So I've elevated the mood all over again. So humor is a very important part in the body of your speech. 6 is transformation. What do I mean by transformation? Is what's the personal transformation you had and the personal transformation that the audience is going to have when they hear your speech. So for example, Nathan, you mentioned earlier, oh, when your eyes popped up, the parachute went up, you know, you felt you were in the moment and you felt the most peaceful ever in the universe, right? I love that description, right? Because I also started feeling that. I was like, oh my God, I can imagine the peace he was having up there, right? Because I've not gone skydiving, but I have gone, paragliding, and you do feel peaceful when you're up there and slowly coming down, and it just feels like heaven. You're in heaven. So the transformation part is very important for the audience and yourself to experience. Finally is the hero. Every story has a hero or heroes. So for example, in my speeches, my wife's the hero, right? She's the one who gives me an advice or says something, and I learn from her. And you can have more than one heroes as well. I've had my son as my hero, or I have my lawyer as my hero. So it could be different, but it should be someone other than you, because mostly what happens is people like to hear stories of other heroes in your journey, not you are the hero of your own journey. It's very rare that you are, but if you do are the hero, just make sure it doesn't sound very egoistic. So it makes the story more how do you say it, more acceptable. So these are the 7 pillars to the body of your speech. I'll quickly jump to the final part, which is the conclusion, and that is the final nail in the coffin. So why do I say it's the final nail in the coffin? Is because I've seen so many presentations, I've seen so many speeches, they're going so well, but towards the end, in the conclusion, they just lose it all out. They just lose the gist. They don't, end it strong enough. And the first thing you need to do is the callback of your story, of your journey, right? You have to call it all back. So if you guys remember earlier, I said humor. In one of my speeches, I said, my name is Yogesh Kapoor, and I am very poor because I don't know how to maintain my relationships. I expect things to be too serious. Uh, and when I come to the conclusion of my speech, and the audience has heard my transformation, where I tell my wife I don't want a divorce, you know, over there I say, my name is Yogesh Kapoor, but I am no longer poor. I am rich because I know how to maintain relationships. So I call back that journey, repeating your opening and transformation. Then is the tagline. That is supposed to be the message of your speech. Like this year, my speech title was Get Out. When I end my speech, I ask the audience, I look in the camera and I say, Get Out, or last year's speech was Why So Serious? I do that to the audience. I repeat it in the end. You can do it before the end. It depends on what your speech is about. But again, the tagline is very important because they forget most of your story, most of your journey, but they remember that message you have. So, like I said, Get Out. And my favorite world champion, he says, I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. And finally, is call to action. What will you ask your audience to do? So, like for example, here in USANA, right, we do so many presentations. What is the call to action? What do you want your audience to do? Because the audience doesn't really know what to do. So, do you want them to change the world, face your fear, dream again? Now, I'll come back to you, Nathan. Um, if you had to give a message to the audience regarding your skydiving, what would it be? What would the call to action be?
The call to action would be do something that gets you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect message, right? Because not everybody wants to skydive, but getting out of your
Right.
comfort zone is so important. Because I know at some level in this different aspects of all our lives, we all are like there where we're in our comfort zone and we don't really want to get out. And I think especially in the whole USANA thing, right? There's so many people that are still in their comfort zones, including myself, and we've not really stepped out of it. And that speech could actually elevate them to push them to take action, right? Instead of a different training that you're doing, imagine doing that speech on skydiving and telling them, get out of your comfort zone. I experienced peace, you know? So that's it for the conclusion. So I'll just quickly recap what I told you guys. One was how to select the speech topic. One was the opening, how to capture the audience's attention, what you need to do in the body, the 7 pillars, and finally the conclusion, what has to be done in delivering that speech. And once you have all these ingredients in place, you will have that perfect cake that I was talking about. So thank you guys so much. I think I'm gone a bit over time because I can't see the time from my screen. And I hope this really explains how to uh, write a winning speech. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Oh, we're only 8:22.
Yeah, we have time.
Cool. Any questions, anyone?
That was really amazing, Yogesh. Thank you. There's like so many points that were super new to me, especially when it comes to like sharing a story or something. So, like, there are so many points you covered, and those points can be in any story, or does it
Any.
have to be like a,
It
yeah,
can be in
okay.
any story. And see, sometimes what happens is it's not necessary that um, like part of your story doesn't have to be real. Like the same why so serious speech I did, that was actually a humorous speech I did in 2016. But what I did, I brought my friend's father's death into that story to make it even more powerful. So I know how to switch around and play with the different aspects of stories. Like the same Get Out speech I did this year, I did it back in 2016. It's just that back in 2016, when I was doing the contest, my father had just passed away. So my mind was like not in the contest. But like I took the same speech 4 years later, I took it out, I played with it this year, I put in different things, and uh, I won because my mind was more clear this year than it was back 4 years ago when I did that speech. And back then, the speech was called Dragonfly. It wasn't called Get Out because the story was I argue, I go down to 7-Eleven, buy myself a beer and cigarettes, sit next to a fountain, and I'm talking to a dead dragonfly who ends up being alive. And it takes me 2 hours to take him out of the fountain and try to get him to fly. And he's not flying. So I put him in the edge of the corner and I just push him. And just before he hits the ground, he lifts off. And I had that epiphany. Oh my God, the universe is telling me why my wife is pushing me because she wants me to lift off. So, then I changed it to get out because it just made sense because I told the dragonfly to get out the way my wife told me to get out. So it just made sense to. So it takes time to get a speech correct. There are many versions of it, right? But the reason why I chose this topic for you guys today was because I actually have homework for all of you. Was to write that one speech that you're gonna give when you're standing on the Usana stage, and that story that you're going to tell. Because we always say, right, you have to have the vision in mind, right, the end game. So if you already have that speech ready for all of yourselves that you're going to give when you're on that Usana stage, when you hit the top, when you already have prepared it, then you just go backwards, right? And that's what we learned in Landmark 2, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? We go backwards, we don't go frontwards. So I want all of you to write that speech. And you can either do it Facebook Live or put it on the group chat Or if you want to have some feedback from me, I can look at it and give you guys all feedback.
So how long usually the speech is? Like maybe 5 minutes? Like
See, it depends
2
on
minutes?
how many stories you have and how few words can you tell your story. Because the shortest world champion speech is 400 some words, and he does his speech in 6 minutes because his English wasn't so good. So he speaks a bit slowly. So it all depends on all of you. I mean, 5 to 7 minutes is perfect.
Okay. Cool. I'm excited.
I mean, I can put a link of all two, three of my speeches that I spoke about today later on the group chat. So you all can look at those speeches and then you guys will get an idea of how it works, how the opening goes, how the body is, how the conclusion is. And that will give you a better idea of how to go about writing your speech.
And that would be great.
Can I share something, Yogesh? It's Daniel.
Sure.
So I really liked what you were saying about the emotions. So Nathan was having a chat with one of the diamond directors in America the other day about our emotions during a presentation. And then you were talking about like bringing people down and then don't bring them so down and then bring them up. I can see that myself and probably most of our team, when we're doing a presentation, we're always so happy and so chipper and life is just perfect. And let's be as positive as possible. But maybe there's opportunities in our conversations to mention some of the lows or to mention how things were before and then the transformation that happened.
Yes.
I can see that, yeah,
That
being
is very important. I'll give you another example. I think I mentioned to you guys that, I get trained on Saturdays to become a corporate trainer. Nowadays, I'm focusing on that. So we were asked to do a presentation on road safety. So we were like 4 members in our team and I had a 10-minute slot. And over there, what I did was I show a photo of a cat on a ledge. And I asked the audience, like, what do you see? They're like, of course, we see a cat. And then I'm like, but what's on the left? What's on the right? So everybody started describing it. They're like, one side is danger, one side is safety. And then I'm like, what's common between this and a human being? And they all were trying to guess. I'm like, the problem is human beings think they all have 9 lives like the cat, and there are 9 different behaviors of drivers that have issues. And one of them is, like substance abuse. And while I'm explaining these different aspects, I tell them a story of how I sat in a car with my friend. We were drinking and he was driving, and we had almost like 2 3 different incidents in one night. And I refused to go in the car with him after that. And the next morning I find out he's dead. And you know how difficult it was to attend my friend's funeral because I couldn't face his son. So, and when I was telling that story, I had this very cryish voice, and one of the trainers, I think it really triggered something in him because it really shook him to hear that story. Now, the fact is, my friend never died. My friend never died, but I told that story because I had to trigger that emotion. And if I don't trigger that emotion, people are not going to take it seriously. And Simar, Deep, you guys know in the Gita, we always say, right? If a lie can save a life, it's not a lie. Right? But I triggered that emotion. I had to kill my friend for that. And when I was telling that story, I literally was feeling my friend is dead. I'm at his funeral, and I had that crying feeling. I had to bring that emotion out in me. But it triggered everyone so much that even the trainers were a bit shaken and were like, "Oh my God!" Right? So I to concur with what Daniel was saying earlier. Yeah, the emotion part is very important, and all of your journeys, when it comes to it's not necessarily you have to be happy all the time.
great. Thank you.
Any questions or any other sharing by anyone?
Yeah, I think for me, I was able to really get so many ideas on even branding. I think when we tell stories on our social media and branding, the way that you were explaining that is so good, because I feel like uh, just describing things versus actually sharing vividly is really amazing. And yeah, I thought that was amazing. And that's something that I can actually use in all of the branding work and social media posts, things like that, so that it's more just like you said, it creates a picture, like create a picture rather than like just describing that you had a burger. Actually take the time to describe what that burger tastes like, what's in it, and which is going to really create that picture for the other person. In fact, create an experience for the other person. So I thought that was really amazing.
See, like right now, what you were explaining to me, I was thinking about your glamour and purpose. Like if I were going to put it in a speech, what would I call it? And quickly it just came in my head. I'd call it GAP, GAP, glamour and purpose. I mean, I just started thinking about it. And that's such a sweet short tagline, right? Like you and your sister could be known as the Gap Girls, right?
Yeah.
Like it just quickly formulated in my head. Right there. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That could be a tagline or a speech title or your, you know, group title, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Gap. I have a Gap jacket.
I mean, you can play with that. You can play with that word gap itself in your branding or your speeches or your presentations.
Yeah, yeah, why not? Totally, I love it.
It's just an idea
I
I'm
mean,
throwing out there.
we're always talking to people about the gap anyway, where they are, where do you want to be, and then, what's missing in between to help you get from where you are to where you want to be.
There
That's
you
the gap.
That's
go.
true. That's if my favorite gap is the nutritional one.
Mm.
So I thought I really thought it's very powerful, right? Because actually in our, in what everybody's doing here, right, in USANA, we all have to learn how to do, the work from home, the health and freedom presentations, and there's always components to that, right? And you can just do the presentation, which is just sharing a bunch of information, or you can weave in your story, which like we were sharing today, Yogesh. I think it's really powerful to have these components of weaving in, what life was like, what happened, what it's like now, and what you're most excited about in the future. I think it's a great idea to be able to weave that through the presentation so that people are really present to that, and do it in a way where it's thought out, right? You use those components that you shared today and actually craft that story.
Yeah, that's why I said do that speech for your homework, and and then you yourself will start feeling empowered because you're creating that vision already
Yeah.
of and and like Nathan, you just said, again, something came out right there. Facts tell, stories sell.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
stories are most. I mean, storytelling has been the most powerful thing. Uh, Take it from movies to anything, right? Even the leaders in Usana, you've heard their stories. I haven't heard as many, but it's the stories that sell, not the facts.
Hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
All right, man. Well, really appreciate it. I actually have I'm doing an addiction and recovery summit on Sunday, and I have to do the opening and the closing for the summit. I'm actually the host, and what you shared today that was very impactful for me, because I actually have a, one of those aha sort of transformational moments in my own life that I wasn't present to until you shared that. So this is very timely for me. So I appreciate what you shared today. It made a big difference.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank everybody. Thanks everyone for coming today. Bhavna, the digestive enzyme presentation was awesome. I really learned a lot about that. I got present too. I need to learn more about the digestive enzymes. It's very amazing. So you guys are amazing. You're a powerful team. So we'll have to get you guys in again, maybe next month, and have you do some different topics. So it's really wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, guys. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah,
And let's take a picture before we
Oh yeah.
call it a night.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.